view the full transcript, and also change the font size. You can also, with your captions, you can also move them around your screen by dragging and dropping them. And if you get that message at the top saying a participant has enabled it, you can just click the X and get rid of that box. So the purpose, why are you here today? The purpose of today's session is to share with you, the registrants, an update of what's happening at the college. And the outcome, to inform registrants of COBC's initiatives and projects, and to provide you also with a financial update. So our agenda for today, the meeting is about 75 minutes. I'm not going to go through every single line item here, but you can just take a quick glance at what our agenda is for today. Very similar to the agendas we've had for the past 2 AGMs as well. So just some things to keep in mind. I'm going to ask everyone to make sure that they're muted at all times, and only the people that will be presenting will unmute. You're welcome to keep your video off. When the board members are going to be introducing themselves, they'll have their video on. I hear some background noise. I'm just going to mute everyone. There we go. With the chat, if you're having any technology issues, please send a private chat to Chris. He's here as our technical backup. If you have questions for the presenters, please type them in the chat directly to me. And you can only send chat messages to the host or co-host. So we have disabled private chat. So questions, at the end of each speaker's presentations, there will be a bit of Q&A time, time permitting. If a question comes to your mind, please type it in the chat directly to me. And after each presenter's presentation, I'll read out the questions that I see in the chat. We will strive to get to every question, but due to time constraints, we may not. The session is being recorded, so keep that in mind. Your chat messages will be saved, so please keep that in mind and keep your messages, professional, constructive, and respectful. As I said, the private chat is already disabled. If you want to rename yourself and maybe enter what city you're from so other people can see who else is on the call, you're welcome to do that. Just right-click on your video and after your name, enter what city you're from. So when I talk about what city you're from, let's find out where everyone is located. I'm going to ask Chris to launch a poll. If for some reason you don't see the poll, it might be because you're connected through your browser and not through your desktop application. Just waiting for folks to enter. We're at about 80%. I think that's good. Chris, if you want to just stop it and then we can share. So majority Lower Mainland. I think that's been consistent with previous years as well. Okay, thank you. We'll stop the poll. Perfect. Okay, so to start off the agenda, I'm going to actually hand it over to Peter Luongo, who is going to be doing a land acknowledgement, and then he will be introducing the board.
Thank you, Rita. I appreciate your facilitating this session again today. Welcome everyone on this beautiful sunny morning in British Columbia. It's my pleasure and honor to begin by acknowledging that COBC operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, the Squamish, Stolo, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. We recognize that reconciliation, decolonization, and anti-racism are ongoing processes. We are committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment that is free from prejudice and discrimination for the public, registrants, volunteers, staff, and other stakeholders. So today's event is taking place for, as has been mentioned, the public to be able, or a group to be able to see, the college registrants to be able to see the business that has gone on over the last year. We have a staff and we have board members online today, and in a moment I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves. My name is Peter Luongo. I'm a public member and the board chair, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Marty, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Martin Sumnuck. I'm the vice chair of the college. Be doing a little talking here today. As you can tell, I'm losing my voice a little bit, so I'll be heavily utilizing the chat tech.
Is Kim online? Did she manage to make it?
Not at the moment. Still attempting. Yeah.
Then allow me to introduce, although she's not online right now, Kim has had some technical issues this morning. Kim McEachern is our financial officer and a longtime member of the board as well. Over to you, Barb.
Barb, you're muted.
Thank you. I can't see my screen. Yeah, thanks, Barb Larkin. I'm a board member, public appointee, and this is the end of my 3rd year on the board. Thank you.
Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal Pollard. I'm fairly new to the board and I'm an optician up in Prince George.
Thank you, Crystal. Has Carl managed to join us?
Yes. So good morning, everyone. So my name is Carl. I was elected last year. So this year is my 2nd year, and looking forward to be working with the rest of the board and the rest of the opticians here. Thank you.
Piotr?
Good morning, everyone. Piotr Majkowski, public appointee to this college for the last 4 years. Thank you.
And Rahim.
Hello, Rahim Savja, elected board member, optician board member for the Lower Mainland.
Thank you, Rahim. And Sue.
Hi, it's Sue Randawa. I'm a licensed optician here based in Vancouver.
Thank you, everyone. Let's move over to staff and give staff a quick opportunity to say hello as well, please.
I'll start. It's Lisa Bannerman. I'm the Registrar Executive Director for the college. Pass it over to Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Dodge. I'm the Deputy Registrar and Manager of Quality Assurance for the college. I'll pass it over to Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Marsh. I'm the Manager of Inquiry and Discipline for the college, and I'll pass it over to Madeline.
Hello, I'm Madeline Neufeld. I'm the Manager of Registration. And finally, I will pass to Sharon.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Lee, and I'm the Strategic Plan Coordinator. And I think I'll pass it back to Rita.
Back to Peter. Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to all of you this morning. So the first order of business this morning is to adopt the agenda and the rules of order. If I could get a motion, please. And that would be typed into the box. Chat. Rita, you can let me know when you've got that.
Martin has sent a motion.
Good. Can we get a seconder, please?
Piotr has done a second.
Beautiful. All in favor? And I guess maybe the best way to do it is anyone opposed? 3, 2, 1. We'll assume that everyone's in favor and we will move forward from there. Thank you all. And that takes us to the chair's report. So Rita, you can put up the
Peter, I've also given you access to forward the slides if you want.
Thank you, and I will do that. Thank you, Rita. So this report from the chair is essentially an update from some of the big picture items that we've dealt with over the last year and that we want to make sure you are appraised of as a group. So we're going to start with an amalgamation update. There's a slight order change here, and a review of Bill 36, a governance update, and then just a commentary about the COBC leadership, especially in particular as it relates to Indigenous cultural safety and humility. So the very first thing that I want to speak to this morning is a process that began back in 2018 when an individual named Harry Caton out of England was enlisted by the provincial government to help resolve a concern related to the College of Dentists in our province. And Harry Caton was asked as well to assess the existing Health Professions Act. As he did so, he issued a report which summarized that significant change was felt to be needed to meet the needs of future requirements for safety of patients, protection of the public of BC. So college's main function is there to be there for the protection of the public of British Columbia. And his recommendations came out of that desire to meet that goal. The very first of these recommendations was to take what was at the time 21 colleges in BC and to take those 21 colleges and begin to amalgamate them. So the opticians were one of the smaller groups of those, and the feeling was that the smaller groups needed some equity in fee payments and in a voice, so that in fact by amalgamating the colleges, it would make for a more effective and efficient process in regulating health for the citizens of British Columbia. So with that said, there was a concerted effort made to put this report together with recommendations that would see fewer, smaller colleges brought together with the notion that, among other things, it would bring down fees for those college registrants. Now, it's important for me to point out the COBC was not one of the higher paying colleges. However, other smaller colleges were feeling the pinch and finding it very difficult to be able to manage under the existing process that was in place. So as the document came together, we recognized as a province that, for example, the nurses had already started to amalgamate under nursing professionals. The doctors had started to amalgamate already, and in fact, drew together the podiatrists, and the oral health or the dentists began to also amalgamate. So they, quite independent of this report, were already in the process of doing some work to bring together their different colleges into more comprehensive groups, fewer groups into bigger accumulated parties or colleges. Caton's recommendations were put forward in 2019. A steering paper was put together. That's 3 years ago now. In fact, in November of 2019. And in August of 2020, the recommendations received support from all three of the parties that were in the legislature at that time in British Columbia. So the Green Party, the NDP Party, and the Liberal Party representatives all agreed that the recommendations moving forward were good recommendations that would receive support from all parties in the House. The proposed modernization of health profession regulatory framework meant that we went from what was 25 to 20 to 15, and that it would move to 6 regulatory colleges. So I've already mentioned the nursing professionals. They indeed added midwives, the College of Midwives. Doctors and surgeons, as I mentioned, added podiatrists. Oral health added those groups that were around the dentists, the dental surgeons, and the groups that were involved in the oral health. Pharmacists would stand alone, and then the remaining 11 colleges were to be amalgamated into 2 groups. One, called alternative health, would include groups such as the chiropractors, naturopaths, massage therapists, traditional Chinese medicine, and acupuncture. And then there was a final group, And that final group was allied health. And that is the group that opticians would see themselves as being part of. So with these changes, a couple of things were said to be recommended, and they were brought forward for consideration. There would be completely appointed boards, probably in the neighborhood of a dozen people on those boards. They would no longer be elected. They would be appointed. Half would be public, half would be health professionals. There would be a merging of regulators and separating out of adjudication issues. So things such as discipline would be moved out of the realm of the colleges into a separate third party. They would be operating as a single register. All the applicants for those different colleges would be amalgamated and put together. And there would be the creation of an oversight agency that would review and report on a regulatory performance of those regulators. The new college structure would focus on ensuring that colleges complied with their mandate and the law, that they would be setting strategy and monitoring performance, and that they would have the role of monitoring the registrar and chief executives to account for the deliverance of service. So those changes went forward. They were brought forward as a mandate, and then COVID hit. So they had not gone to legislation and sort of became the second priority during the time of COVID. As we've come out of COVID, a bill has been put together, Bill 36. And that has been put together with the notion of indeed assigning board members based on competency, no longer operated by government, that the board will have equal public professional members, and that the focus will be on policy making and oversight that would ultimately lead to the way that regulation would happen. So Bill 36 is in the process of being considered by the legislature. So what is Bill 36 going to do? Well, it's going to, as I was just saying from the Caton report, revise and modernize the Health and Professions Act, which governs health regulatory colleges. It's going to make some changes as have been outlined so that that process happens more efficiently and effectively. What about the oversight? What will improve? Well, the feeling is that with appointed board members, that the decisions made will be more nimble. The feeling is that the oversight of discipline panels, the overseeing by discipline panels takes that away from the colleges and allows that third party to be able to act without bias. That the work of the colleges on best practices and recommendations can then be handled efficiently by the colleges. The sense is that it would lead to an improved set of governance. So smaller boards, fewer regulators, more efficiencies in terms of fees and in terms of regulations, in terms of an improved process for changing and updating bylaws. Now, obviously, with a streamlined process, this would also incur the idea that some things would be viewed from a bigger perspective. And so one of those examples is just looking at things like the Plain Sight Report, the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, as the provinces considering those issues related to our First Nations communities, that rather than individual boards, individual colleges making decisions, those bigger picture items would be handled from a greater perspective, and each college would then see some of those regulations brought to them directly. Now, we expect that there could very well be some hiccups here. First and foremost, we know that there are financial considerations. Anytime there's change, there's consideration of how that would occur and who would pay the costs of it. At this point, those things have not been articulated. So we're not sure how much of the cost will be borne by the province, how much would be borne by colleges. The other thing that obviously changes is that where we have boards currently being run by individuals, as amalgamation happens and occurs, we have staff members and board members that would also see their roles no longer being necessary. And we need to make sure that there's an equitable way to handle any compression of needs of service. We also understand completely that there's going to be some trial and error, that as this process occurs, there will be some issues to need to resolve. The good news, we know that at least 3 parties have already gone through the process: the nurses, midwives, the doctors, surgeons, podiatrists, the oral health group. And so we hope to be able to rely on some of previous groups' expertise in the work that needs to be done moving forward. But clearly, this will lie with legislature and will be, as per the previously agreed agreement from the 3 parties in the legislature, a way to move forward. So we as an organization will see change. We're not sure how long it will take. We're not sure whether it'll be a year, 2 years, 3 years, but what we do know is that there is general agreement and that this is a change that's coming for us in the future. As an individual college, we will see change to an amalgamated model. Okay, so with that said, one of the things that the College of Opticians felt needed to happen was that we needed to look at our own governance models, in part, just to make sure that we ran our college in an effective way, but also with an eye towards what was coming as a result of the Caton report. So our college formed a governance working group. It's made up of public member Piotr, myself as the chair, our financial officer, who is indeed an optician, was an optician, and it includes our registrar, Lisa. And as we work together, the first and foremost priority is to ensure that there's good work happening between the board and the staff and our registrar, so that there's a cohesive direction moving forward. Secondly, one of the things that was already mentioned in both the Caton report and in Bill 36 is that evaluation of the board, evaluation of our registrar is an important consideration. We now have an annual review process for our registrar. It is measured against our strategic plan. That strategic plan's success or failure is a measure for us of the effectiveness of the work being done by our registrar. We also are in the process right now of looking at models for more effectively assessing the performance of board members. And in fact, there is a committee that I've been working with, made up of board chairs and vice chairs throughout the colleges that are working on an evaluative process. We've recently had a complete bylaw review. And we've been fortunate, although there was a moratorium on bylaws being changed, some of our bylaws needed to be changed so that we could again be effective. But again, now we feel better about the bylaw structure so that as we move towards amalgamation, there is a greater consistency between what we have and other colleges have, which means less change upheaval. And last but not least, we've tried to make this process of aligning our governance procedures so that they will be more nimble as we move forward. We're more efficiently, effectively moving into amalgamation where we're aligned with the governance processes of other colleges. Last but not least, one of the things that is really important, I think, for our group is that we are able to demonstrate leadership. Without a doubt, we had hoped that we would, as a board and as a college, be able to demonstrate in the area of the reconciliation and the work towards bringing together cultural awareness, the Indigenous Cultural Safety and Humility Initiative. And indeed, as a board, we have mandated that every board member must take the training that involves Indigenous cultural safety and humility, that we as a college have asked our registrar to include in the performance standards, work towards an understanding of all registrants with regard to the same cultural safety and humility initiative. And last but not least, we have as a college adopted this as an important pillar in our strategic plan. And in so doing, hoping that we show other colleges that this can be done, it can be done effectively. We didn't take on this initiative because of a problem that was existent, but rather because we saw the direction that was being taken by the province, the right direction, and we adopted it because we felt this was a great way for us to demonstrate to the rest of the colleges, to our registrants, that this was a leadership opportunity for us in showing the reconciliation, the Indigenous cultural safety, and humility initiative as part of the way that we do business. With all of that said, this is my final year on the board. I do want to very much say thank you to registrants, first and foremost. Secondly, to the many opticians that I've had the pleasure to work with. Over the years, since 2015 that I've been on the board, I've met some absolutely wonderful professional opticians who have demonstrated the care and the professionalism that you would be proud of as registrants in leadership positions on the board. It's also been a pleasure to be able to work with some great public members. The amount of learning that is done through being on the board has been really wonderful. And I want to thank the staff who are dedicated to working on your behalf and on behalf of the citizens of British Columbia. Special kudos to Connie, who was the previous registrar, and now Lisa, our current registrar, for your tireless efforts to lead our organization and to do well by the registrants and by the public. To each and every one of you, thank you for taking part. And at this time, I'll move on back to Rita to continue on with the agenda. Thank you.
So, Peter, we actually have one question. That was, do you know which other colleges will be amalgamated under the Allied Health Group?
I sure do. In fact, we are going to be looking at a group of them, and not the least of which will include the optometrists, the dietitians, the physical therapists. Let's see, as I continue to go through this, well, maybe it's easier for me to tell you who won't be with us. We're going to have the chiropractors, naturopaths, traditional Chinese medicine, and massage therapy separated out. And then with our group, dietitians, occupational therapists, opticians, optometrists, physical therapists, psychologists, and speech and hearing.
Okay, thank you. There was a hand up, but I've asked that person to type their question in the chat. So let me just take a moment and see if that question comes up.
Yep.
Okay, well, if it comes up later, we'll pose the question after. Thank you, Peter, for that update. And now I am going to call on Lisa to give the registrar's report.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many people joining us today as I've been watching everybody come into the waiting room. I'm going to try and keep mine quite short, and then if there's questions after, I can answer them. So this has been a busy year for us. We've done a lot of work, and these are kind of the highlights, I think, for things that we should touch on this morning. Is the standards of practice, the bylaws, and the new automated refracting tools that we've developed. So for we told you last year we were doing all this work. So these are all things that we did finish this year. So for the standards of practice, we have a brand new document that came out earlier this year. And then we added an additional standard just on September 30th. So the standards of practice are simply stated, they set the expectations for all of you in your practice. And it's really important that we do update them regularly to make sure they reflect the current state of practice. So that was why we did this. And we did it in conjunction with a research firm, and then through a survey that was sent to every optician in the province to validate and make sure that we were on the right track. And we also had feedback from optometry. We had feedback from opticians in other provinces. So that has been, a big project, and we are rolling out case studies in all the newsletters to help you understand those standards. But if at any time you have questions about them, don't hesitate to contact us at the office. All right, we have a quick little poll on the standards. I'm not sure who does this, if somebody else launches it or do I launch it?
I've got it, Lisa. Or
Perfect.
oh, someone clicked in there, maybe.
All right. Okay, so that tells me that some of you were not even aware there was a new standards document. It is posted on our website and it is being reviewed in each and every newsletter. So if you're not receiving those newsletters, let us know, or if you need to staff to tell you where you can find this new document, let us know. All right. So the bylaws, Peter touched on it briefly already, but we have a whole new bylaw package in front of the government at the moment, and it has now been filed. We have to wait 60 days for it to come into effect. We were just notified that November 9th was the date. So the new bylaws will come into effect in January. Not a lot of changes specifically for opticians. It's more administrative in nature. But it does remove the electoral districts that we've had in place for elections. And as Peter mentioned, with the new legislation, there won't be elections anyway once we come under that new act. The only big change really is there's been some updates to the advertising and marketing, and we will be again communicating all of the bylaw changes in the newsletters. So watch for that starting in December. Automated refracting. This was another big one. We reported last year that the inquiry committee had asked the board and the staff to prioritize updating some of the information for automated refracting, as we were seeing an increase in complaints that indicated that opticians really didn't understand the limits and conditions that are in the opticians regulation. So it was an important project to work on, and it really made staff and I think board and anybody who worked on this project realize that, you know, the regulations are very complicated. And so we tried to come up with as many different ways to explain the limits and conditions so that opticians who are performing automated refractions would understand what the limits and conditions in the regulations are. There are a couple mandatory forms that must be given to any client, and those are probably the biggest piece that anybody performing refractions needs to make sure they are using today. So again, if you're not sure about this information, please contact me. Here's just an example of some of the more visual tools that we developed. The one on the left is geared towards the public or your clients to explain the difference between what a sight test is and what an eye health exam is. And then the one on the right is for opticians or for support staff to kind of walk them through what the limits and conditions in the regulations are. Okay, and finally, I just thought I would touch on the feedback. We asked all of you when you registered if there were particular topics that you wanted to hear more about. And some of the things that you responded with, I'm not entirely sure what it is that you're asking. So as an example, one was licensing requirements going forward. So if we don't answer the questions today for you during our presentations, we will have some Q&A time at the very end, so please don't hesitate to ask us then. Or alternatively, we do know who asked what questions, so staff will contact you directly, and then we can answer those questions for you. And also some of the questions today related to things that the college does not do and is not allowed to do. And examples were things, there was information wanted about business management and business growth, as well as education and upcoming events. The college doesn't provide that information. That really is the responsibility of your professional association, which would be the Opticians Association of Canada. So I thought I'd also mention that we just recently developed a comparison chart to help opticians understand who does what. And it can be found in the blog section of our newsletter currently, but we will also be finding a spot for it to live permanently on the website. And again, if you would like a copy of this, you can't find it on the blog, please let me know and we will send it to you directly. Okay, and that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
There are a few questions. I think it's a combination of either it's you or it's Peter. So one question is, who appoints the positions that were previously elected? And how are the other boards formed and by who?
So those are good questions. It's my understanding at this point in time that it will be the health minister who appoints all positions, whether they are from the profession or whether they are from the public. And it will be done on a competency-based system. So anybody who is interested in applying that is from the profession will specify what competencies they would bring to a board. And then that will be used to determine who sits on that board. And you can imagine with the Allied Health College, if there's only a board of 12 and we've got 7 professions in there, not every profession is going to have a seat at that board.
Yeah, let me add to that. It's my understanding from reading through the documents in preparation for today that, in fact, the idea from Caton's report is to have a arm's length group that would be in charge of assigning. So the notion is in the long term to take it out of the hands of government to assign positions to the board.
Actually, I think you're right, Peter. It's the oversight body that would do it.
Right.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
So ultimately, it's no more government appointees. This would be done by a third party, and it would be done based on competence. And to be really clear with the registrants online, competence is around the governance model and the ability to work within a board structure. So whether you are a practicing optician or a member of the public, the decision is based on your competency in board work. Now, just to make sure it's clear, that doesn't mean that they're going to now no longer include the professional strengths that an individual has. Obviously, I'm a good example. If you were to ask me to regulate or to make decisions based on opticianry practice, I'm not able to do that. Regardless of how many years I've spent on the board, I would need to defer to the expertise of opticians. And that recognition and that acknowledgement is there. There would always be, in a college that governs the opticians, the voice of opticians referred to.
Yeah, it'll be through profession-specific committees. So that's where the work will come in from the profession side.
So a few more follow-up questions on this. Who forms the oversight boards and who chooses this third-party council?
So we haven't been given a lot of detail, but I would suffice to say that they would look for individuals who have a background in governance. They would look for candidates who have the ability to do the, I guess, the professional work of selecting candidates with qualifications. So it would be an HR function who can bring forward the skills that are needed for a board. They get shortlisted, interviewed, selected based on the criteria that is set by that third party group.
Anything you want to add, Lisa?
No, that's good for now. I see there's a question about the members of the Alliance was not clear. So I can touch on that. So there's 7 professions in there: speech and hearing, opticians, optometry, dietitians, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and psychology.
Yep.
Another question was, one person said they have to leave early. Will they be able to see the video of this AGM, and where will it be available?
We can make that happen. Not a problem.
Okay.
Chris and I can figure that out.
Yeah, there's There's a section on the website called Board Highlights. It's where we put all of our meeting minutes. And so we'll put the minutes of this meeting as well as a link to the video.
And then I think there was another follow-up question on where it said, who chooses this third-party counsel? And then the person asked, is it the government?
Well, ultimately, there's going to have to be a transition over from government selecting to that third-party group. So there is no doubt that that process is going to happen through the legislative body. They're going to have to select the people that make those choices. Now, whether that's a party amalgamation like the Liberals, the Greens, and the NDP all having a voice as to who would be selected to do that, that remains to be seen. But the intent is to get people who are professionally capable of making the kinds of decisions to bring boards together. So the spirit of it is the Caden report. The spirit of it is to look after the public interest, not to try and pick appointees who will be the favored of the government, for example.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you, Lisa, for your registrar's report. We are now going to move on to the next agenda item. So I'm just going to change up the spotlighting here. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to call on Jade, the financial auditor, and she's going to be presenting the auditor's report. So I will bring up and share with you the document. So let me just bring that up.
Thank you, Rita. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jade. I'm the auditor, and my firm, Penn & Co. We have audited the financial statements of the college for the year ended March 31st, 2022. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial positions of the college at March 31st, 2022, and the results of its operations and cash flow for the year ended in accordance with the Canadian Accounting Standards for Not-for-Profit Organizations. Rita, if we can move on to the Statement of Operations on the next page, please. So this, the Statement of Operations are comprised of two components. The first, which is 2/3 of the page, is the income from normal operation of the college. And the later part of the statement is the other income, that is extraordinary income that's outside of the normal operation of the college. Now, if I can direct you to the 2022 column, you can see that there is a subtotal for the revenue sources. For the year ended 2022, March 31st, 2022, the college had revenue total $804,904. Of this total revenue, 83% is from the registration fees, the renewals, and 7% is coming from the grant revenue. This grant revenue is from the BC Ministry, who's provided the grants not exceeding $146,900, and this will cover the project running from March 11, 2022, just shortly before the end of the year, and ending on March 10th of 2023. And this grant it's basically a project to help the college updating its pre-arrival readiness tools to help international trained applicants. And details of this grant and its milestones of the projects are included on note 6 of the page 10 of this financial statement. And the remaining sources of income, the administrations, other fees, interest income, and grant revenue, the examination, total 10% of the revenue. Now, if we move on to the expense section, the expenses total $816,797. Of this total, 47% is from the wages and salaries, and 14% from legal fees, 9% from contractor fees, like especially for the grant projects, and 6% from rental, and all the other the other expense sources, every line item on this financial statements do not exceed, but they're either 5% or less. I'm sorry, sorry everyone. I'm actually fighting a cold, so if I have to stop for minutes. As you can see, the total revenue, although it looked like the revenue had decreased by about $31,526, but that decrease is a result of the change in the grant project revenue. So if you can recall in the prior year presentation, when I presented the financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2021, I mentioned that the grant project for that one ended during the year. And so the new project started in the 2022 year, and that's why there's a smaller amount of the grant revenue, as the grant project just started shortly before the year end. And so you can see that the registration and the examination fees, you can tell that the college is now returning to normal from the COVID pandemic. Now in the expense section, the expenses had decreased by about 14% from the prior years. And this decrease, majority of that is contributed by the contractor fees amounts. That's about 89% of the decrease in expenses. And this contractor expense obviously is going to vary from year to year, depending on the grant project and its progress. And that's going to tie in with the grant revenue project. All right. So overall, the college had a surplus of $88,107. This is the excess revenue from expenses. And this surplus helps to contribute to the net assets of the college that's accumulated over the years. So if Rita, if you can move down that page by a little bit, you'll see in the beginning of the year, the college had net assets that's accumulated over the years of $337,137. So when you add the surplus from the current year, now the college at the end of the year had a net asset balance of $425,236. Anybody have any questions on this revenue and expenses? No?
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay, perfect. But just kind of a quick reminder to everyone and the members, especially if you're curious about any, especially if you see, you know, the ordinary revenues and expenses for the operation of the college, they are going to vary slightly, but not by much. And if you are curious and interested in the changes, the variation from year to year, we have included notes to the financial statements that provides a little bit of explanation as to what that expense is about and what the changes relate to. So say, for example, one thing that you'll probably notice, the rental expense has decreased for the college, and that is in note 7 of the financial statements. And that note 7, you'll notice that it mentioned about the college has now reduced its office square footage to about 282 square feet from 604 in the prior years, and that results in the savings over $10,000. Same thing if you look at the legal expenses, that legal fees is in note 8 as well. And that note 8, you'll notice it's mentioned the changes as a result. And just to mention, the legal fees is obviously going to vary from year to year. And with the legal fees, that increase is contributed by the legal fee services related to the investigation and disciplinary matters of 4 registrants during the year. And that will go up and down depending on what's happening during the year. All right. So that's basically the statement of operations for the college. Now, if we can move down to the balance sheet. Thank you. So as we mentioned in the when I go over the statement of operations, I briefly talked about the net assets, which is the accumulated surplus over the years up to the year end. And of that net assets, towards the bottom of this balance sheet, you'll see the net assets has a breakdown of an investment in the capital assets that's currently used by the college and the uninvested, unrestricted surplus. So the amount invested in the capital assets is $786, and the amount that's not restricted is $424,450. This is a straightforward balance sheet, and one thing that I know a lot of people have question about and not as familiar with is usually in the liability section, and that's the deferred registration fees. So of the deferred registration fees, that is essentially the renewals that has been received for the year ending March 31st, 2023. As they're received by March 31st of 2022, they're not revenue for the college yet, and that's why they're sitting in the liability section of the balance sheet. And the total revenue collected as of March 31st, 2022 for the current year is $597,265. And that basically concludes my overview of the balance sheet and previously the statement of operations. Any questions?
It's crickets in the chat. There's no questions about the financial.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me back again this year.
Thank you so much, Jade.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving to the next agenda topic, which is the Indigenous cultural safety and humility. So I just want to confirm, has Kim been able to join, or are we moving to Megan as a backup to present?
It's going to be Megan.
Okay. So let me just spotlight her. So Megan, I'm going to give you slide control so you can advance the slides, okay?
Okay.
1 second. Okay, you're good to go.
All right. So Lisa and Peter both kind of touched on the Indigenous cultural safety piece. We've been working very hard at the college to make this a priority. It's one of the strategic plan items. Kim had a really good land acknowledgement for you all today. I don't have a copy of it. Peter did one at the beginning of the meeting, so I'm going to kind of gloss over this. I would encourage everybody to reflect on the land that they are currently on, since we are joining virtually today from all different spaces. I'm just going to go through here. So we've been working on a project decolonizing and indigenizing the complaints system. We have partnered with a project manager by the name of Robin Adams, who has helped us create a project plan to enhance Indigenous anti-racism, cultural safety, and humility in the complaints and inquiry work. We began the journey by partnering with a Two-Spirit Coast Salish artist by the name of Margaret August, and they created a custom and meaningful piece of art that reflects the values of the project. And those values were worked on by the staff, the board, and the inquiry committee to ground our work. So this is Illumination by Margaret August. And we are going to be publishing the whole story behind Illumination in our January newsletter, And so there will be a lot of information coming out to you folks about this project work, and watch out in our newsletter for that information. We have also been working on an Indigenous cultural safety and humility standard of practice, which Lisa mentioned was in effect as of September 30th. So the standard was worked on with 10 other colleges. We were the 11th college. And we have adopted this standard as sort of a uniform standard with all of these colleges. It is to ensure that we are committing to eliminating Indigenous specific racism in the healthcare industry. And it is to hold opticians accountable to making sure that they are culturally safe spaces for registrants and clients. We marked the force of the standard with a blanketing ceremony on September 30th.
I'll play the video.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Happy second National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. We're here to mark the work, this moment, through the application of First Nations laws and protocols. Today we have the opportunity for the regulatory colleges that are here to begin moving forward to hold their respective registrants accountable through the adoption of a new cultural safety, humility, anti-racism practice standard. So it's really important to recognize the validity of the First Nations laws and teachings and protocols that we're going to experience today and bring them forward as part of who we are as society. And that truly is an action of reconciliation for all of us moving forward. And we're really happy to be part of that today with you. Ho, 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 ho.
Okay, so that was a clip from the blanketing ceremony on September 30th. Thank you, Rita. So now we have a question about Indigenous cultural safety and humility.
Chris, are you going to launch it or did you want me to?
Yeah, no, got it right here. Thanks.
We've got about 65% participation, so we'll just wait a bit longer for other people to fill in the poll. So if you're not able to see the poll, it's probably because you've joined via your browser and not your desktop application. If you join via your browser, you're not able to see the polls.
Okay, so it looks like most folks are aware that there is a new standard, which is great. And again, if you need any information about the standard or where to find it, please let us know and we will send you a copy of that. And as a reminder, you are absolutely able to include this work in your continuing competency program. Because there is a new standard, you can review the standard, and we also have a ton of resources on our website related to Indigenous cultural safety and humility. And we encourage you to put that in your continuing competency program if you need another goal, or if you have any areas that you want to look at in terms of this work. And this topic is really important, and I encourage you all to take a look at our communications that are coming out around this topic, because we don't have a ton of time to chat about it today, unfortunately. So please look at what's coming. If you have questions, please reach out to the college. We are absolutely here to help in your journey. And there's another poll question.
We're at about 40% participation. We'll just wait a few more minutes. And we do have a question in the chat for when you're done, Megan. We're at about 60% participation. A few more moments for people. I still see some responses coming in. We're hoping to get to 80%, then we'll stop the poll. So let's see, we're at about 74%. Okay, Chris, I think you can stop the poll. We're at almost 80. So you want to share the results? So I don't know, Megan, if you want to just talk to the results here.
Yeah, so it looks like a lot of people have done some training, which is great. We have encouraged you folks to do the Indigenous Cultural Safety training through SANYAS. There's also a free of charge course through the University of Alberta, which you can take. And 27% of people have done independent learning or research, which is also wonderful. We have another 27% that have completed some learning and are continuing to do more. There's 33% of folks who have shared or discussed learning with colleagues, which is wonderful. And 21% of you have not done anything yet, but plan to, and it's on your to-do list. So I will pass it back to Peter, I think. Or ask questions. There's questions,
there's
right?
a question. There's a question. So let me just add myself to the spotlight here. So one of the question is, you were talking about the standards. Are these standards based on the new anti-racism laws passed in June, July 2022?
Yes, I believe that the standards that was a piece of the standard that was considered. So when we did this work with the 10 other colleges, we adopted the standard from a joint standard that was created through the BC College of Nursing Professionals and also the College of Physicians and Surgeons. So they had done a ton of consultation work, a ton of legal work to create their standard, and then they gave us permission to adapt it for an allied health setting. So it absolutely has considered all of the legal framework.
I do know that Kim has joined by phone. I don't know if she wanted to add anything in.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Kim, are you able to say anything? If we can't hear you, if you are saying anything. Okay, I think she's still having some technical issues. Okay, that was the only question that came through. Let me just see if there's any other questions.
Yeah, and if folks have questions as you sit with this information or as you go through the information that comes out from the college, please reach out at any time. We're happy to help answer questions.
Thank you so much, Megan. She was a last minute kind of backup plan to do the update. So I really, really appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to pass it back to Peter, who's going to make some announcements. So I'll add him to the spotlight.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for stepping in. I know that Kim has not been able to be part of this meeting due to technical difficulties, but I do want to thank Kim and the staff for the great work that they have done on that file, in really being committed to being leaders amongst our leadership group here at the College of Opticians. So thank you to you folks. So we do have a few announcements regarding board vacancies. 2 members have terms that are expiring at the end of 2022. Sue Randawa is seeking reappointment for a 2nd term, and Rahim Savja, 2nd and final term. So this was his 2nd and final term expiring. With no other nominations received by September 30 deadline, Sue will be appointed for a 2nd term in 2023, and there will be no election for the other position. There is a line. You can certainly indicate if you're interested in participating on the board. Registrants interested in filling the remaining vacancy may apply to the board for consideration by contacting our Deputy Registrar, Chris, at the email address shown there for more information. I can tell you, as having sat on the board since 2015 as a public member, it's a great way to learn. It's a great way to serve. It's a great vehicle for being able to recognize the professionalism that you have as part of being an optician. So if it's something that interests you, it is some work and it does require you to be committed to sitting on some committees. But if it's of interest to you, I urge you, I encourage you to get involved in the college and on the board. If not full-time on the board, perhaps contact Chris about potentially sitting on one of the committees that we have. As again, it's a great way for you to serve and a great way for you to learn more about the profession and about professionalism within that profession. So with that all said, we have committee and board appreciation, and I'm going to turn this back over to you, Lisa, together with Piotr and Marty.
Thank you. So yes, committees, I get to do the committee appreciation. I just wanted to say that, you know, the board role is really a oversight role, and the work is done through committee work. And so the committees are a really important part of the college. And I thank everybody who volunteers their time for this, because I know it's not always easy to get everybody together and to find, you know, the time to commit to this work. So first, I wanted to thank Polly Lee. Polly has been on our inquiry committee for 6 years, and the inquiry committee is the busiest committee. It meets monthly at least, and we really appreciate all the work that Polly has done in that committee. And the other one is Gizu Bozkaya, who's been on the Patient Relations Committee for 6 years. And Gizu, again, is a very dedicated volunteer to the college and has done a lot of good work for us. So thank you both, Polly and Gizu.
I can jump in and have a few words here. I've had the pleasure of knowing Rahim for about 10 years now. That goes right back to the early days of him and I working together on as examiners for the provincial licensing exams. I've always known Rahim to be very active in the profession, our profession of opticianry. He first volunteered with the College of Opticians back in 2009, and he's spent the past 6 years on the board and registration committee. 2019, in true Rahim style, stepped up as a board chair in 2019, Rahim's always brought a really high standard to the profession in all areas that he touched. On the board, his focus on protecting the public and ensuring that we've got quality and accessible eye care, it's been paramount. During all of his service, all the time working with him, those that know him well, he's always has a great sense of humor. If you spent an hour with Rahim and you didn't get a chuckle, you probably didn't spend an hour with Rahim. So I thank you for that too, as well, Rahim. You definitely made for, you know, an engaging and fun work environment. Thank you so much for all your years of service.
Thank you very much, Martin.
right, and the honor of appreciating some of our public members falls to me. Barb Larkin has been a board member with us for the last 4 years. Barb comes to the college with an extensive amount of experience with governance and different kinds of organizations. She's worked with municipal parks. She has worked with a great deal of housing, making some really amazing things happen for a lot of folks that are in need of housing in our community. She's also not an optician, but she is a registered health professional. She's a registered social worker and really understands the work of a health professional and understands the work of helping somebody in need. She's always wanted to, throughout her career, make a difference, and this has been another chapter, another step in the journey of public service towards her community. And I think it's a laudable effort that she's brought to the board. She's served for 3 years on the patient relations and discipline committees, and done some very difficult work there. The discipline committee, although it's one that doesn't necessarily always have to meet, it's one that always has to be prepared. It's always one that has to be prepared to a high level of technical standards. And that's something that Barb really took on in her time, and also a year on the registration committee. I'll say that in the time that I've known Barb, she has often brought a sober second thought to decisions that are being made. Sometimes we rush to make the best and most efficient decision at the board, and Barb often has a piece of input that really makes you think, really brings us back and makes us make even better decisions. And I will say that Barb, and this is maybe part of her experience as a social worker, as a part of the work that she does as a counselor in the community, she has an incredible ability to listen. So both at the board level to decisions that are being made, you know, sometimes when there's a misunderstanding, Barb has listened carefully to everybody, and she knows the miscommunications that are happening at the table before anybody else does. She also listens to individuals. I've always felt really, really hurtful when speaking to Barb. So thank you so much, Barb, for your 4 years of service to the board. All right, and
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank
go
you.
ahead.
Just wanted to say thanks, and I've enjoyed the last 4 years. And thanks for clarifying it was 4 years, because I keep saying 3. And yeah, and just you know, thanks to I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is you know, it's been a journey, this amalgamation piece, learning about that, the COVID response. I think staff was amazing. And you know, the Indigenous cultural health and safety has been just a really just eye-opening and just very interesting. And I'm really proud of the fact that staff and the board have taken it on in terms of a project that shows leadership in the health regulatory community. I just think too, for me, just understanding the role of opticians and in terms of, you know, what the public needs to know. And I'm really hopeful that opticians continue to be, you know, in the regulatory health sphere, and you know, really in terms of the community, understanding what their role is. And just wanted to say to staff, you guys do not rest, and you're amazing at what you do. And just in terms of the documentation and the data management, I've just always been super impressed. So, and thank you for taking care of me over the last 4 years in terms of all your emails and reminders and things like that. So also camaraderie, I think we've been really a nice group, and I've enjoyed our time together, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb. So the next person that I'll acknowledge is Peter for his 8 years of service on the board and 3 years of service as chair of the COBC. I'll mention a fun fact about Peter. You know, it's very rare, you know, if you say no to a government appointment to ever be asked again. And Peter was in fact asked 2 times to serve on the COBC. And he refused the first time, and they wanted him so acutely that they came back and asked him again, and he agreed the second time. So I think that tells you about his experience. He brings a lot of experience from spheres of education, from leadership, and from the private sector. He's had numerous years with the Inquiry Committee, which, as you've heard, is a very busy committee. It's a lot of deep technical work on that committee. As a member and an advisor of that group, he's worked for 2 years on the Registration Committee, for 2 years on the Governance Working Group, and for 1 year with the Patient Relations Committee. He's been a very busy member of the governance team for COBC. Peter has always consistently been a strategic thinker, not only during board meetings, but I'm sure that I'm not the only board member who's had a coffee or a phone call from Peter to talk about what's happening at the board, what are the next steps, how do we move forward in the best possible way. And Peter will be the first to tell you that his first interest, his first representation is to the public of BC, and that is borne out in his actions consistently throughout his years of service that I've worked with Peter. He has put the public's interests first, prioritizing that issue always whenever we discuss anything at the board, making sure that the COBC meets its mandates as an organization. So thank you so much, Peter, for your years of service.
Thank you, Piotr. And as I said earlier, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with so many really professional opticians, to work with great members of the public who shared that passion for serving the public. And as Barb has stated, and rightly so, the staff have been excellent, always striving to be better, always striving to serve as best they can, to work tirelessly. And in just special recognition, not that I haven't appreciated all the staff, but especially to Connie, the predecessor to Lisa, and to Lisa for your commitment to the college board and to all the leadership that you show in making sure that the college is not only doing its work, but leading in a way that brings registrants the best opportunity to serve the public. It's been a pleasure. It's been a long run. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I will remember very fondly the folks with whom I've been able to work. So thank you.
So I think that takes us to the end of the meeting. We did want to throw up a poll, and also I'm going to bring Peter back up after to just close off the meeting. So we'll bring up a poll to just get some feedback from you folks.
Rita, as folks are doing that, I want to thank you again. This, I think, is the second or third time that we've done this together.
Third, I believe.
Well, it's really appreciated the work that you've done in getting us organized and ensuring that we could have an effective, efficient meeting here today and get good work done. So thank you.
It's a pleasure working with you folks. Thank you. So we've got about 70% participation on the poll. We'll just wait till we get to 80% and then we'll share the results. Thank you for the registrants for taking time out of your schedule to attend the AGM. Okay, Chris, I think we can close it off and share the results. So is it the amalgamation one that got the most votes? The amalgamation update got the most votes. Okay, thank you. And then Peter, I will hand it over to you to close out.
Thank you, Rita. Again, to all registrants who took time out of your day today, thank you for joining us. Thank you to all the board members and staff. With that said, I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting. You can type it into the box.
Or you can use the raise hand feature.
Oh, a raise hand. There you go. I can't see that, but.
No problem. So I see Martin has done a raise hand and Piotr has as well.
Good. So we've got a mover, a seconder, and all in favor.
I see lots of hands for the people that do have their video on.
Good.
Okay.
Let's move forward with adjournment. Thank you, everybody. Be safe, be careful, take care.
Thanks, everyone.
And I think, Chris, you can stop the recording.